everybody. So I've got my tools, I've got all my parts, I'm ready to go. So we're going to pull out the build guide that's provided on the micro SD card, exactly how we're putting this printer together. Okay, so before I get into that, I'm going to do a lot of peeling here, obviously. And as I mentioned in the unboxing, we're going to do some upgrades. And one of those upgrades will be providing an on and off switch, a physical on and off switch to the power supply. So we've got a case printed for this guy. This will pop right in here with a little bit of force, and I'll have to pre-drill some holes. Another thing I plan on doing, I plan on adding some corkboard to the bottom of our heated bed. I picked 2 sheets of this up at the local dollar store, so it's pretty cheap stuff. And since we don't have a glass plate, we're going to add a mirror to the bed. Now, these are some 12 by 12 that I picked up at a local hardware store. It cost me $15. There's 6 of them in there. They're pretty heavy, but these are too big for this. So what I ended up finding is at the local dollar store, this similar mirror that I use on my X3. This thing is 10 by 10, I believe, or 9 by 9, I'm not sure, but it'll fit this bed pretty good. So we're going to be putting that on there. That'll be a ways away. And then we got a box of 3 printed upgrades here that we're going to install. So let's get to the build. So step 1, we're going to need this center frame piece, our top frame piece, and our 2 side pieces. So we're going to do a time lapse here. Take all this protective paper off. Okay, so I got enough pieces with the protective film off to get me started here, and I have my lovely assistant off camera doing the rest. There's a fairly large community for this printer, and there's a lot of upgrades out there available, which is great, which means I don't have to take the time myself and design them, because they're already done for me. So this is one of those upgrades. What this is, get that out of there. It's a brace for between these two frame pieces. And it fits nicely on there. There's two screws to hold the front in place, and it prevents this from warping in, which is usually caused by the tension on the y-axis. Let's get that there. And I like how the orange contrasts too. So. Okay, so there's our back assembly, and this will get attached permanently later through these two holes. But now I have to move on to my front assembly. I'm going to set that just there like that. We're going to move some stuff in the way here. What are we going to need? We're going to need this guy. But I have something different I plan on doing for the front cap. These are going to go right here. Don't know how they stay. There we go. Might as well put them on. As you can see, it's just a reinforcement bracket. It doesn't attach any specific, it just snaps into place. And the ones I printed happen to have the name of the printer on them. They just snap in place like that. I might reprint them in orange. Okay, so there's our back assembly, and this will get attached permanently later through these two holes. But now I have to move on to my front assembly. I'm going to set that just there like that. We're going to move some stuff in the way here. What are we going to need? We're going to need this guy. But I have something different I plan on doing for the front cap. These are going to go right here. Don't know how they stay. There we go. Might as well put them on. As you can see, it's just a reinforcement bracket. It doesn't attach any specific, it just snaps into place. And the ones I printed happen to have the name of the printer on them. They just snap in place like that. I might reprint them in orange. So this takes care of, for now, step 6 in the assembly guide. As I filmed this in orange, and I am printing, and I took a small pause there to go set up one of the printers now that it's stopped printing something else to print my tensioner bracket for the y-axis. Okay, so on to step 7, and this is where we need our smooth rods for our y-axis. step 8 in the assembly manual. That is putting the build videos I've checked out online are a little different and show the this frame plate a little different. Shows it as acrylic. Also shows a piece up here that I don't have. So, continue following these assembly instructions. Wow, that is loud. How much travel do I have there? 240 in travel. That is insanely loud. My X3 and my CR10 are whisper quiet. The only things you hear are the fans. I have a feeling this is not going to be whisper quiet. Wow. And this is my first printer with linear bearings. I know there are better linear bearings out there, but this is what it came with. So those are not getting upgraded. So that is, let me get all the rest of these in. So we'll do a little time lapse there. That is step 8 complete. Now we're going to put our belt in place. So pick this up, put her down. I think I'm going to put some screws through there and hold my plate on. This little plate. See what we got. Okay, let's put the belt on. Belt. 10 is the heat bed. Wow. Okay, springs. We got this bag. Need some N3x30s. Right there we are. Okay, so I took a short break. Finished printing off some upgrades I wanted. These clips that I printed in black, I figured I'd print some in orange. They turned out rather well. I figured they would accentuate the orange I have in the base. You snap into place. And I give the case a little bit more rigidity. So, those turned out quite well. So, what I want to do with my heated bed is a couple of things. First, I want to add this mirror. And then second, I want to add some corking underneath to give it some insulation and to help it be more energy efficient. The heated bed and the actual build area on this, the actual area on the inside of this flange is 225 by 225. So it might give me a little bit bigger build area as well. So I'm going to grab my calipers. I want to find out what this difference is and split the difference. 3M two-sided tape here that I'm going to tape to the bed. I'm going to line it up here. Before that, just set it here so I can drop these screws in. Okay, the reason why I put my mirror on right now is I want to put some corkboard on, and I want it to go right over the edges of the heated insulated as much as I can. For the plate and the mirror, what I used was 3M two-sided tape. Well, what I have left is 3M two-sided tape. Just want to see here how I got lots of clearance. And for the back here, since I'm out of 3M two-sided tape, what I did is I got some, this is Gorilla tape, and it's a fiberglass woven two-sided tape for laying carpet. I'm just doing every upgrade I can think of that I would do to one of my printers that I purchased out of my own pocket to improve it in every way I can. So even though this was a gift, I still want to make it the best printer I can make it, and I might as well do all of that during the build instead of a little piece here and there at a time. So I took a little break because I didn't like this design. I didn't like how ugly it looked, even when I had to come up with a screw and a nut for it. So I really didn't like it. So it can go in the garbage. I printed this guy on X3 and it turned out really nice. Print quality is really nice on that, as well as the little bolt and plate turned out really well too. I hope you can see that in the shot. So I went ahead off camera and I took the front assembly back apart for the third time, and I figured while I have it apart, I wanted to flip this over, this plate, and I went ahead and also put together my cable chain to hide the wiring to the bed that I 3D printed. The link for this to Thingiverse will be in my description, and I might as well install this here as well. I'm going to need some longer screws for that. Fortunately, I had some on hand, so I'm going to install this, my Y cable tensioner, and get the bed back in place. This guy's pretty simple to install. Just goes in here like this, and then we just take our original bearing, and I still want to use 2 washers in here. I was reading up online that some people suggest that I take this cable off altogether for the heated bed and solder this directly to the board. I'm not going to do that at this time. look on Thingiverse or YouTube, there is an overwhelming amount of information, upgrades, critical parts for this printer. It can actually be, for somebody new to this, be a little confusing. It's hard to figure out which ones work and which ones just work. I sorted through quite a few before I settled on the ones that I printed and I have here today. This build. There are some that are better, some not as good, but some of the better ones require that I purchase a lot of extra components. Like for the rigidity of the frame here, instead of printing these two pieces, there's another assembly that puts two more threaded rods in the center here. And that would require that I go purchase those two threaded rods. Now again, I'm not doing a typical build. There's hundreds if not thousands of those already on YouTube, where somebody goes through the build process of the printer, prints out some pieces, see how they look, and then begin to do the upgrades. I'm just going to do the upgrades right away. What upgrades I can at the moment. So I won't have comparison parts to see how things go. Some of these upgrades that I'm doing, they don't really do anything for print quality, like this cable chain here. This doesn't really do anything for print quality at all. I could probably do with a few less of these, so I'm going to take this off. Probably take out maybe these four. See how that goes. Still do with a few more removed here. Probably take out these three. Still another one I need. Let's get that installed first. So noisy, these bearings. So I got the cable chain installed, but the design of this cable chain doesn't allow me any clearance for the washer on my threaded frame rod. So what I'm going to have to do is I might have to cut or grind one edge of this so that I can slide it in place there like where it should be. I don't know if I have anything here right now that can cut this. Wonder if I could file it down. I could try that. If I would have known this beforehand, I would have just done that beforehand. It would have been a lot easier. But I didn't want to. I didn't know beforehand, and now that I have this all together, I don't want to have to take it all apart just to do that. So the file. Now, let's do our, I believe, if I go into my tablet here, the next step will be to install the framework for our Z-axis steppers. The tablet battery died on me. I forgot to put it on the charger, so I'm just winging this. Okay, next. This assembly here. However, I want to take these and replace them with these. two. Can't remember why I printed two of them. So I'm going to be replacing this side of the gantry assembly with pieces here. Which one of these looks nicer? This one. I don't know why I printed two. Right here. Okay. So I really like the pieces better than these, even though these are injection molded. It will add more weight though, unfortunately. But I like the look of them better, and I'm going to have more functionality, because on this one here I'm going to have the ability to tension up my belt once I have that all assembled. I went and I printed these little caps, and they're meant for these bolts here, but they're really tight. I got two for the back, but I'm probably not going to put them on. They're just too tight. Okay, I'm also putting a little cap for the end of this screw because I don't like how the screw pushes into this acrylic. So let's go back to the build. We're on step 13. We need our end stop. Between the family and the full-time job, I really don't have a full evening to work on this, so I've been picking away at it, spending an hour every evening on it, getting a little further ahead. But that also means it's taking me longer than normal because I'm coming back to where I left off and whatnot, setting everything up, of course, the cameras and whatnot. But I don't have a full day to spend on it right now. Okay, I don't know if I like that there. I would have designed a channel into this for this wire to go through. I don't like that there at all. I hate exposed wires. some I had some 2-inch, I don't know what these are, there might be 8/32 lying around. So I'm going to drill a hole there and then put a little handle on it. And what I want to do is I want to redesign this little knob to be bigger, to be deeper, so that you never see the screw. It's always hidden inside the knob. Yeah, fuck. So that's a problem. Both of the grub screws are missing in this. Both of the top grub screws are missing in this coupler. Let's take the grub screws out of these. I shouldn't have to. Nothing else in the box. I'm missing my 2 grub screws. Okay. Yeah, I'm missing 1 on this one. Washers and 2 long screws here. These 2 long screws take the place of these 2 screws. And first thing we do is orient this how you want it. You need the side with the sticker on it facing in the heatsink, because that's where it's going to blow air in that direction. You can put your little grill on if you want. Why not? Just have this set up and ready to go. And just be careful here, these are going to want to come out, so maybe it's a good thing that this is already set up in there. Use the two screws that I removed from here to put. I have two of these. Little, Again, I just went off camera to heat this button up to press fit it onto the nut, so I wouldn't have to use a zip tie that the design off Thingiverse recommends. So that's got now the outline of the nut on it, so it sticks a little better. I don't need a zip tie now. The exact install tension. Nice and tight. I have the cable chain for all the X-axis cables installed. I have a feeling this is going to be a very loud printer. So I want to install my LCD now. LCD. Okay, so I printed this little filament guide. I thought it was pretty neat. It's going to go in between my LCD and my frame. these Z-axis cables in. Okay, let's flip this back around. All these wires, get them organized. They don't flip-flop everywhere. Okay. I'm gonna install my electronics box just to see what I got for room on wiring. So let's take this guy. Where's he gonna go? Right there. These screws back in here. Okay, so let's see what I've done here. I've got my housing, my boards in place. A spot for a future Mosfet. They're a little thick, but I might have to actually, yeah. Access to my SD card slots there, but I don't know. Have to get it out. First, let's get this here. Let's take a look at our power supply. So I got this 3D printed case, and I got on-off switch here with a 20 amp fuse, and a plug here so that we're not always directly plugged into the wall. So we're gonna wire this all up. Okay. You're welcome. All our wiring's done in there. And then this will just come out like that. Leave that. Go here. freezes it more.
Because
Or chocolate ice cream.
I didn't think of chocolate ice cream until I thought it was freeze. I thought of it ice cream when I knew you would be on the phone.
So, if you look in here, you see I have a screw in there, but I had no hole through the acrylic for it. So I used that hole as a pilot hole to drill a hole in the acrylic, and then a little washer and a nut to secure it. And now that is on there pretty tight. And I got an on-off switch. It's all wired up inside. I got a fuse and a plug. And I just run my line over to my board. And I can start wiring everything up. We'll take a look back here before I put the camera back up to see some of my cable management. So this frame doesn't have these holes in it, but I drilled a few holes. Put some wire tie downs in place to keep this line in place, to keep it away from the belt and away from the smooth rod. And then we're going to do the same for this guy here. We're going to do the same. Of our LCD. And it's just a matter of wiring everything up. And then we're going to have a spot. We have a spot for 2 Mosfets. I'm just going to install 1 for now. I don't need 2. Not worried about the hot end. If I have a Mosfet drawing power for the heated bed, that takes enough away from the board that I'm not too worried about the hot end. Okay. Up all our electronics. Okay. Let's get our power in here first. This fan is going to cool the electronics. I just gotta wire the other end of this up. I want it to direct power. All that. Just snap those in. Okay, here's the printer all assembled. So I have my Y belt tensioner modification, my front frame support, some little caps for the front screws just to pretty it up, my chain for my cables on my gantry, my modified fan shroud, my upgraded or modified gantry brackets, including Z-axis end stop adjustment there. We have our X-axis belt tensioner. We have some reinforcement brackets, they just snap on. We have our filament guide here. We have some caps up here, and I'm going to replace these. I don't have the bearings for those, so I didn't install them. So I'm going to replace those, or remove them all together. Let's see here. We have our chain for our bed cables. We have some corking. We have mirror. Go around to the side. We have a nice plug-in on-off switch and a fuse for our power supply. Look around back here. All kinds of nice cable management. Reinforcement for the rear frame here. Some more cable management all into the box. A nice printed box for all our electronics, and a fan to keep everything cool. And I'm just waiting on a Mosfet to come. It should be here next week, so that I can install it and bypass the board for power to the heated bed. So there the printer is. It's all assembled. I still have to fire it up, level the bed, and do my first test print. Looks not too bad, especially with all those add-ons and upgrades. Here's the first print on the machine. All I did was manually level the bed. I did have one issue. The X stepper motor, for some reason I think the motor internally is wired backwards, or the software has an issue, but I haven't looked at the software. When I first homed it, the X stepper motor wanted to send the hot end in that direction, and I checked everything was plugged in okay, like it should be. So what I did is I removed the wiring harness from the X stepper motor, and I pulled all the pins and I reversed their order so that I had my motor pulling in the direction that I required. So let's see how this first test print goes. This is my first direct drive printer. All my others are Bowden set up. So I got some LED lighting sitting up top there. I'm going to design something so I can mount that inside the back of the frame. And I order these online, and they're pretty neat. They just plug into a USB port. They get a nice long cable, and they have their own little on-off switch here, so they go good with the printer. I don't need to plug them into the printer's power supply, and they're fairly bright. Just as a precaution for my first one, I did a little wrap because the base is so small. I doubt if I needed it, but transparent PLA can be tricky, especially for your test print. So far so good. I'm going to have to play with my retraction settings a little bit in my slicing software. But other than that, let's take this off the bed. It's stuck pretty good to the tape. So other than a little bit of stringing, because this is my first direct drive, as I said, so I'm going to have to play with that a little bit. I reduced the retraction settings in it compared to my other printers, based on the fact that it is direct feed. Let's see if this support comes off. It's a little tough to get that off. No raft for this one, so just a quick vase print for my second test print on the Anet A8. Laying that down perfect. Just to give you an idea how loud this thing is, I'm a little concerned that my filament might be catching on my cable chain here. I might have to do something down here. You can see it catching. I'll have to address that. Anyway, so far so good. Big difference in the sound. Big difference. This little printer's got to be 3 or 4 times louder than my other printers. But I have it cranked right up right now. Like, it's going no faster than my CR10, but my CR10 is a lot Got a lot lighter print head, and it's not on linear bearings. You can faintly hear the CR10, just faintly hear it, but the A8 is just loud. I'm actually glad these were from a different set right to here, and they're a little stiffer. It keeps it up there. That little vase should be printed in no time. Second test print. Spiral vase. Came out really nice. Spiral vases are pretty easy to do, so it's not a real test of the printer's capabilities, but it's an easy print to do, and it's my second print on the Anet A8. So we have the printer all assembled. We have our first two sample prints. As I said, it took me less than 5 minutes to level the bed. All I did was, like in my previous video with the X3, is I positioned the hot end over one corner, disabled the steppers, and then with a piece of paper, once I had my end stop adjustment fine-tuned, just made sure the piece of paper was just catching. And then I moved it over to this side, did a little bit of adjustment, and I repeated it for the back two corners in the center. I got lucky with this printer. As I said, it took me only a couple of minutes to level, so usually that's not always the case. You might have a threaded rod here a little imbalanced compared to the other side. Your springs might be fairly different from one another, but I got lucky there. The build took me a little longer than I anticipated, but that was due to the fact that I printed all these upgrades for the printer and I had to incorporate those into the build. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The print quality is pretty amazing. The noise level is a little higher than I'm used to. As I say, with my other printers, the only thing I hear on those is the fan. Occasionally I hear the motor a little bit, depending on how fast I have them running. This printer is a little bit louder than those printers. My Mosfet's due to arrive in any time. Probably by the time I air this video, I'll have that Mosfet in, and then I'll hook that up in the printer. I'll post that video online. As well as around that same time, I should have a good feel for the printer and how it prints, the quality of the prints, what I can get out of it, and maybe I'll have a few nice prints to show at that time, and I'll post a video of that and an updated review. It's going to take me a few weeks to form a final opinion on the printer, but so far it's not too bad. I cannot say honestly whether or not I would go out and purchase this printer, given there's so many options out there. I have my X3. If I had the option between the two of them to do it over again, I'd probably go for my X3 first, just because of the all-metal frame. It's a lot quieter. There are some pros that this printer has over the X3. The bed is a lot more stable than the X3 right off the bat. You don't have to worry about that. This is a lot more tried and true, and there's a much bigger user base and support base for this printer. But the X3's user base and support base is growing every day. This printer out of the box comes with a filament cooler, and it's a pretty good, this little blower is actually pretty good at cooling the filament. The X3 does not. So you can keep that in mind. You'll have to actually go out and buy a fan for the filament cooling on the X3. Have the X3 all assembled already, and then you'll have to print a shroud for that fan, because the X3 does not come with filament cooling. This comes with filament cooling out of the box and a shroud pointed directly at the filament, which is pretty adequate to begin with. But there are improvements out there, and for this one I have put an improvement on it. There's a lot of similar features on the two. They both have the same LCD interface, the exact same menu interface. They both have the same mains power supply on them. They both have the 20 amp power supply. The stepper motors are the same. The biggest difference is this is acrylic and it has linear bearings. There are positives to that and there are negatives. This printer, when tuned properly, will be more precise than the X3 because it relies on roller wheels and open build extrusion. But so far I'm pretty happy with it, with how it turned out with these two prints. And I enjoyed the build, even though I had to spread it out over many nights and many mornings due to the fact that I have a lot of other stuff in my life going on. And it's a nice new addition to my collection. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll leave links in the description to all the add-ons that I incorporated into the printer, as well as links to any additions I had to purchase, like the Mosfet, the little switch for the plug-in for connecting to the power supply, and the little LED light I have up here right now that just has some pinch clamps holding it on. I'll leave links to those in the description. I get no compensation out of those. However, the link that I do have in the description for this printer will be an affiliate link, and if you choose to buy this printer through that link, I do get a small commission from Gearbest. Thanks for watching the video.